please let me welcome here a friend and a colleague from Plot Next, who will introduce the next panel and will also moderate it together with, I think, 3 different tools that are meant to help you up the production value at a lower cost. And of course, technology is a great part of that, and we don't shy away from that. Gerhard Meyer.
Wow, with intro music, this is feels like an MMA fight. A little bit of an introduction, because I think that a lot of the topics that we already shown today, and I think with vertical microdrama is just a great example, that our industry is changing, and I think is changing at a really fast rate, not only in terms of the business models of what it means for the creative work behind it, but also in a lot of ways in terms of what does it mean for the technology involved. Especially when it comes to AI, a topic that me as curator of Seriencamp conference and Plot Next, like a subsection centering on technology at Seriencamp, are looking at for the last 2 years is what exactly does this new technology mean? And especially looking at, for us, always looking at a very interdisciplinary view of what is happening there, what is not only happening in the film and series industry, but what is happening in the marketing industry, what is happening in other creative audiovisual industries. It shows that it is a very transformative technology, a very dividing one, without question, and I don't want to downplay any of the big questions around it in terms of political economy, in terms of sustainability, in terms of ethics. But what we've seen in our first edition of Plot Next that took place 3 weeks ago in Cologne, where we invited creators, production companies, broadcasters from all over Europe, not to discuss theoreticals, but to show how they're already employing that kind of technology in their productions. What has been shown and what is interesting to see, that it has a huge impact on traditional ways of approaching storytelling. It has a huge impact on the traditional, very linear, hierarchical structure of how film and series are produced. And it does this from a lot of different perspectives. One of them is a creative one. What does it mean as a creative, as a writer, director, a producer to approach that technology? What does it mean for institutions like big companies if you want to adapt to that technological change and put it into ways that's really sensible and make sense for future-proofing your business model? And on another level, what does it mean for classical producing? What does it mean for planning a production? What does it mean for communicating with your directors, your DOPs, with everybody involved? So this is why this is a rather 3-pronged approach that we're doing here, with each of these perspectives taking a little bit center stage. We're gonna start off with a project that was already also at Plot Next a couple of weeks ago, and that I find so interesting because it shows how AI can, in a sensible use, solve a lot of the budget restraints that you have, especially in fields where budget is not that abundant. And as we all know, in the future it might be that it's not abundant in even the secure playing fields that we're used to. In documentary filmmaking, as anybody who's involved in that, you know that budget is one of the big constraints. Not only this, but also you have to solve sometimes creative problems, that lack of material, lack of archive material, lack of other constraints. And this is why I'm super happy to introduce the team behind Road Trip 1945. a production that was documentary production for ZDF that recently won a major award in New York for the production. Want to mention this also. So without further ado, I give over to the team of Road Trip 1945.
Hi everyone, we are going to bring you some healthy food to the McDonald's junk food. I found that a very interesting perspective. So here's the healthy documentary food. My name is Michaela Hummel. I serve as CEO and producer at Docklights in Hamburg, so moin moin. We are a non-fiction production company within Studio Hamburg Group and ZDF Studios, and we focus on stories that are always true, authentic, timely, mostly fun and compelling, visually compelling. And I think that's why we're here. At Docklights, we work across two main divisions. We're going to cut the short documentary, factual entertainment. The entertainment part is very important, natural history. And we produce documentaries and factual series mainly for Germany's public service broadcasters. Our productions are distributed across streaming platforms, social media, and TV. So we're doing very little TV, and we see it as a distribution tool for everything else we produce. You might know some of our productions. You can see it behind it. There's a mental health program. We've got ARD, Germany's most, I think, important and well-known host, Ingo Zamparoni, just did a documentary on Trump, and of course our award-winning docu-series, which we are very proud of. So we've got always one goal, and that is making very complex topics feel human and accessible and exciting to watch for young viewers. And I'd like to give you a very quick introduction to our project, Road Trip 1945. We have a very, in Germany, very well-known host, Mirko Trotschmann. He's an historian. He's very big on YouTube, and he's also on streaming and TV. And we combined him with a very interesting historical figure, lots of cinematic storytelling, and of course, grounding every episode on verified facts. A lot of fact-checking, a lot of work. Nights, days, weeks, months on fact-checking. So that's important. And again, very important, that's what the ZDF told us, and this is part of a pitch. It was quite some work. There were 5 other companies within the pitch, and we won the pitch. And it was, okay, we need to design something to travel across all markets and platforms, and that worked. We've got in streaming more than 1 million views, and it's extremely successful on YouTube, and the ZDF there does not count the linear quote. It's not so important for them. So they really count streaming and YouTube views. And what is, for me personally, always a little bit frustrating, if you're familiar with the German doc program, I mean, there are hundreds, thousands, it feels, documentaries, and excellent programming on Germany's history between 1933 and 1945. But I sometimes worry, and the data also shows, it's for the people who are already interested. So the everyday question is, how do we reach viewers outside the bubble? And that was a tough one, but Road Trip did that. Again, how would you make this topic feel immediate, emotionally engaging for younger viewers? The data proved this, without compromising historical accuracy. And that's where AI became part of our visual workflow. Sort of our team member, our staff member is AI. And we believe really with that Road Trip is very relevant, and then it opened the door for a hopefully later meaningful conversation. And maybe let's have a look at it.
Ich begebe mich auf die Spuren eines jungen britischen Soldaten.
Lieutenant Frederick Freddie Gray.
Freddy ist auf einer ganz persönlichen Mission unterwegs. Einmal quer durch das zerstörte Deutsche Reich. Er ist auf der Suche nach seinen Eltern, die von den Nationalsozialisten verschleppt worden sind.
Ich weiß nicht, ob meine Eltern noch leben, aber ich muss es wissen und habe keine Zeit zu verlieren.
Eine Reise durch ein Land, das in Trümmern liegt, nachdem es die Welt in einen Vernichtungskrieg gestürzt hat. Deutschland im Mai 1945. Eine Zeit, deren Folgen bis heute zu spüren sind. Meine Reise auf den Spuren von Frederick Ray beginnt im Westen Europas. In den Niederlanden, in der Provinz Seeland. Heute eine beliebte Urlaubsregion an der Nordsee. Vor 80 Jahren tobt hier gegen Ende des Zweiten Weltkriegs eine blutige Schlacht. Noch bis in den Spätherbst 1944 liefern sich Soldaten der deutschen Besatzungsmacht mit alliierten Truppen schwere Kämpfe um die Hafenstadt Antwerpen. Auf der Seite der Alliierten müssen Millionen Soldaten aus verschiedenen Nationen ihr Leben riskieren, um Europa vom Naziterror zu befreien. Unter ihnen kämpfen auch Deutsche in verdeckter Mission. Einer von ihnen ist der junge Frederick „Freddy“ Gray. Aber das ist nur seine Tarnidentität in der britischen Armee. Sein echter Name lautet Manfred Ganz. Kind jüdischer Eltern, geboren und aufgewachsen im Münsterland. Ein abenteuerliches Schicksal hat ihn in eine Spezialeinheit der britischen Armee geführt und in die Kämpfe an der Küste der Niederlande verwickelt. Ich folge Freddys Fährte nach Hus, einer Kleinstadt auf der Halbinsel Zuid-Beveland. Das Kriegsende in Europa erlebt Freddy damals in den Niederlanden. Hier in Hus ist seine Einheit stationiert. Dort befindet sich eines der Hauptquartiere des British Commandos. Und genau hier wird er später auch seine Eindrücke zu Papier bringen. Es ist ein einzigartiges Dokument, ein Tatsachenbericht, in dem Freddy beschreibt, wie es damals aussah, in Deutschland im Mai 1945. Während andere feiern, bietet sich für Freddy die ersehnte Chance. Erst vor kurzem hat er erfahren, wohin seine Eltern verschleppt worden sind. Nämlich in das Konzentrationslager Theresienstadt, etwa 900 Kilometer entfernt von Hus. Sind sie vielleicht noch am Leben? Um das herauszufinden, macht sich Freddy auf die Reise und es beginnt eine Odyssee, einmal quer durch Trümmerdeutschland. Freddy erhält die Erlaubnis seines Vorgesetzten, nach seinen Eltern zu suchen und wird mit dem dafür notwendigen Fahrbefehl ausgestattet. Seine Reiseerlebnisse hält er minutiös fest. Es ist das Dokument einer Zeitenwende.
12. Mai 1945, erster Tag. Der Fahrer hat erst vor einer Viertelstunde von der Reise erfahren. Und du bist dir absolut sicher, Sergeant?
Was haben Sie gesagt? Sir?
Ob du dir sicher bist? Ich kann dir nicht garantieren, dass wir halt zurückkommen.
Absolut, es ist mir eine Ehre. Aber was mir mehr Sorgen bereitet, sind die Bremsen.
Die lassen wir unterwegs reparieren, versprochen. Wir haben dazu jetzt keine Zeit mehr, ja? Endlich sind wir bereit, loszufahren.
Mein Großvater war ein mutiger und entschlossener Mann. Man sieht ja an seiner Geschichte, da ist jemand mit einer Mission und einem Ziel.
We were so happy when ZDF invited us for the pitch, and after a deep dive research of about 5 weeks, we stumbled more or less upon Freddy's story, because everybody knew this is just a perfect story written by life itself, an unbelievable hero's journey with a happy ending despite the terrible circumstances of May 45. And on top of it, it was garnished with a love story, so you couldn't make it up better. The challenge was that it only existed in written form. At the heart was the original 9-page travelogue, which Freddy wrote in May 45. There were countless letters between him and his future wife, and an autobiography and a few historical books. So altogether, a rich foundation, but purely a textual one, which is not really ideal for television, of course. There were some photographs, but zero video of Freddy. So we also learned that some Hollywood studios already attempted to bring his story on screen, but none of them received green light due to the massive production costs. After all, we're talking about a road trip in an apocalyptic landscape with endless rubble, millions of displaced people roaming the streets. Fortunately, we had some jokers up on our sleeve. First, Freddy's descendants supported our project from the very beginning. Then with Mirko Drotschmann, who's very well established in younger audiences with more than 2.3 million followers on YouTube, we found the perfect presenter. And we collaborated with a very innovative graphic studio, Pulse Boutique. And the challenge, it was always clear that we wanted to work with actors, but of course filming on real locations was not affordable. And our solution was to kind of split and merge. We filmed the actors with real props in a studio, and the backgrounds were created graphically. And to harmonize both dimensions, we applied a unique drawing style, like a graphic novel filter, which gave the scenes their own specific look. But of course, within our documentary budget, no human designer could have drawn the necessary 24 images per second by hand. And to fulfill this mission impossible, VFX brought in a game changer. Of course, I'm speaking of AI. Here you can see a picture of our AI. And it was trained by a human designer. He drew around 80 images per hand. The AI then replicated his look and superimposed it to our shot and edited scenes. And to share how exactly our AI-powered workflow looked like, I will hand over to the better half of my brain, Gabriele Rose.
Hi. So as Andrea just mentioned, we decided to work with editors. Well, because editors surely, with their facial expression, with their gesture, they could just make emotion visible well. And the journey of Manfred Ganz was a very emotional journey. So we decided to work with them and to do our foregrounds with them. As you can see here, because we have the special idea to do this kind of transition. So we have Mirko on one side on a real scene, on a real landscape, and on the other side, our foreground, which just created in a graphic novel style, and it's directly in the same landscape. So what we did was, okay, we just shoot with our actors in a blue box. And we said, well, and we worked with normal props, weapons, and everything except of the car, the Jeep. That was too expensive for us to have real and old Jeep within our studio, too expensive and even a little too complicated to work with, so we decided to work with a model, with a real measure, so that our actor won't be in, to like walk through the car to get in it afterwards. So that was digital. It was better for us even to manage this to put in some different screens. So we thought, well, it's perfect. We're working with actors, we're working with real props, as we are filmmakers, documentary filmmakers, historical documentary filmmakers. We have to be precise and historical correct. That for us was perfect. So we're working with real actors, we're working with real props, so we have the control of everything. We have all the costumes with the little dots and what everything has to be, the insides of everything, so it has to be real and even the weapons are correct. But afterwards, when AI has to transform this foreground into a graphic novel, AI didn't care. So there were some dots on the costume in another scene, they were on the same costume, some stripes, or all these little very, for us, I'm an historian, so it's very important for me that there are the right rings for every military stuff inside and everything. Well, AI made what she wanted. So sometimes in color, sometimes not, sometimes it didn't disappear. So that was quite a lot of handwork afterwards inside this creation of, or using AI. Well, it helps a lot, but nevertheless, it was a lot of handwork or handcraft by the VFX. So our backgrounds, we used different sources. We had on one side historical photographs or films, but they're not every archive would allow us to work with them and to transform or to do it with the AI. That's one side. Second was that sometimes our VFX department created 3D models or just rebuilt cities after a normal photo. And the third one was that we, as I said before, we are on real places. It's over there. It's in Hoes. It's in the Netherlands. This house was formerly the headquarters of the British Army. So we knew that we wanted to make Mirko on one side and our graphic novel on the other side. That means our workflow changed because we are much more, let me say, back and forth between the department. We are filming on one side, giving that back to the VFX. They said, no, we don't need something more. Or we just had our road trip and we see, wow, we see a perfect farmhouse that looks like 1945. Let's use this for the background or for prompting the AI. So this workflow, which was just more back and forth, even with the post-production, because we need to find the master shot for Mirko. So it was, you have to work as we did, and we are doing in our next show with AI, fully generated AI. You have to be more precise. You have to really think about what you're doing. It's not like on a shoot normally where you can say, okay, we're just changing a little bit. That doesn't work anymore because you have to be really precise. If not, the AI costs much more because you have to redo everything every time. So we have another short video if you like to see a little bit what we did, and well, afterwards, some questions.
Ich fand eine Biografie über Manfred Ganz. Und eigentlich direkt beim Lesen war klar, das ist eine dieser Geschichten, die man sich als Autor überhaupt gar nicht ausdenken kann, sondern die das Leben geschrieben hat. Und es war ganz klar, wir müssen das erzählen.
An seiner Geschichte kann man ganz viel ablesen und deshalb lohnt es sich, ihn auch zu verfolgen, auch weil er das alles so gut dokumentiert hat.
Einer der großartigen Dinge an dieser Geschichte ist, dass wir die Reise von Freddy nacherleben. Also wir tatsächlich an diesen Orten sind, von denen er 1945 schreibt.
Er ist auf der Suche nach seinen Eltern, die von den Nationalsozialisten verschleppt worden sind.
Für mich persönlich ganz Schönes an diesem Projekt ist eigentlich diese totale Vermischung von ganz unterschiedlichen Elementen. Und das ist, als ob man so einen Zopf flechtet und hat man ganz unterschiedliche Strähnen, die man quasi zu einer Geschichte zusammenbinden muss. Das ist Mirko, der auf der einen Seite eben seine Geschichte miterlebt, also quasi auf den Spuren wandelt und wir mit ihm quasi durch die ganzen schönen deutschen Landschaften fahren. Das ist das eine. Auf der anderen Seite haben wir natürlich die ganzen Graphic Novel, die wir davon haben, von eben Freddie Gray, der diese ganzen Elemente ja erzählt und was ihm da jeweils passiert ist.
Und dann hätte man im Hintergrund die Graphic Novel und Freddie im Jeep.
In Borken bleiben kann er nicht.
Zu viele Sorgen treiben ihn.
Aber eben nicht eine klassische Graphic Novel, die sozusagen nur aus einzelnen Bildern besteht, sondern wir wollten eben Bewegtbilder haben. Und das ist eben das ganz besonders Tolle, dass unsere VFX-Abteilung da eben tatsächlich neue Wege gegangen ist und versucht hat, das anders sozusagen zu gestalten, sodass wir mit Darstellern gearbeitet haben, das dann bearbeiten können, sodass es eben aussieht wie eine Graphic Novel.
Hier hat der Bürgermeister vor ihrer Nase eine Verordnung erlassen, dass niemand etwas zu essen kriegt, der nicht der Freien Deutschen Partei angehört.
Wir haben dann irgendwann gemerkt, dass es funktioniert. Die Testphase hat eigentlich relativ gute Ergebnisse geliefert. Wir wussten aber auch, dass unser Illustrator gutes Material braucht, um die Sachen zu zeichnen, die dann hinterher den Stil ergeben. Wir haben dann auf dem Bluescreen-Dreh eigentlich alle Schauspieler fotografiert und unser Illustrator hat dann diese Fotos genommen und die in seinem Stil nachillustriert. Also wir haben ihn an die 100 Bilder zeichnen lassen, dass die KI diesen Stil umsetzen kann. Unsere Herausforderung oder unsere Aufgabe war dann, diese ganzen Ebenen dann zu einer Geschichte, zu einer Graphic Novel zusammenzubringen.
Nur wenn man über Krieg spricht und darüber nachdenkt, dann versteht man den Wert des Friedens und kann dazu beitragen, dass Frieden erhalten bleibt.
Famous last words by Andrea, but Gabriele, remember when we had Hitler in a pink uniform? So you need to train the AI. So with some of our project, you need to be vigilant. I just want to have a really few words about our findings and what we sort of decided what we don't do. Because these days you have to sort of give a mission or have a standpoint concerning AI. So we will never use generative AI to create historical figures. And we don't use AI to generate archival material. We find that sort of dangerous. And we need to be vigilant, and it's our task to be vigilant. We are journalists and historians. And I think, why do we produce these programs? Many eyewitnesses to World War II are no longer with us, and we find it is our responsibility to preserve their voices and their stories for future generations. Again, we are safeguarding democracy at the end. I know it's a big word, but that's why we are motivated every day. And we are documentary filmmakers with our staff member, AI. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, the last big question, because I think you touched already quickly upon some of the ethical issues around this. You said that you're currently working for your new project with something that's more fully generated in AI. What do you think, maybe as a short exit statement, what do you think are some of the knowledge or the skill sets that on a production writer, directing side, you should know about technology to be able to approach it in a sensible manner, and something where it helps you in your work process, but where it, like where to draw the line? What are the ethical considerations from that side? I give over to you.
I think I guess I said it already, and we do this together with the German public broadcasters. I think I don't only speak for myself. I feel it in the documentary field. People are now really taking care and watching out. There was a lot of everybody was excited about, and I feel like we're backlashing a little bit, being not as excited about it and having more boundaries and setting more limits. So I'm more on the limit setting side. I like it for visual compelling stories, but that's about it. That would be my take on it.
Well, as mostly writer and director, for me, I like to work with AI on a certain point, because it helps me by that film, for example, to do something would we have never been possible to do before, because it's a way out of our budget. But on the other side, for me as an historic and a filmmaker, working with AI is doing what she wants. So if you have an historical person, there's no really looking, is it really accurate what they're doing? So we have to have a lot of working with them, training them, and looking after it, because if not, they will change things because they think, well, for example, we made a thing, we just colored historical footage, and there was a film about Goering. Goering loves to wear a white uniform. But on the other hand, he has some leather jacket while he was hunting. He was quite famous in hunting. But this leather jacket I knew because there was really a color archive by that time. It was red and green. But for the AI, sure, because there was a lot of pictures in a white uniform, sure, this leather jacket must be white. So you have to have a lot of time to watch over it, and that's, for me, it helps on one side, but it gives, for me as a director and author, a lot of more work, because normally I work together with people on the scene, and they know what they're doing in each department, but, well, the AI doesn't know it, because she's just taking what's the most time everywhere. So that creates, for me, it helps me, but creates some more problems.
I don't want to overstrain our time budget so much more. I just have two key messages. Form follows function, that's one, and stay vigilant. That's it.
Thank you very much for that insight, and for anybody who's up for the session afterwards. Right after this session, there's the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper and pick your brains on some of the challenges that come from this. So thank you very much, and big hand of applause for you, please. So, a slight change of perspective. Next up on stage, I welcome the team of Hyperbole and Pensing Studios to give us a slightly different perspective on the possibilities and use of AI in production. Dennis, Philip, maybe as an introduction before I mangle anything up and state inaccuracies, can you give us a little bit of a background about Hyperbole, what it is, what it does, and Pensing Studios and how they relate to each other, before we dive a little bit deeper in what exactly that new kind of technology or the adoption of the technology means for both of your work in the recent times?
Well, I will start by talking about the Hyperbole. We're a virtual production studio existing now for 6 years since this month. So we were right at the beginning when virtual production kind of popped up. If anybody remembers, The Mandalorian was one of the first things that started doing that. And we started by, well, falling into it, thinking like, oh, this could be something nice. And started doing lots of commercials, and then gravitated more into film productions and serial productions and all kinds of stuff that needs real-time LED content. We started on a trade fair in Munich that kicked us out after COVID was over. And that's when we got into contact with Philip and the rest of the guys from the Pensing Studios, because we were looking for a new place. And so we were the first renters in Penzing. And that also enabled us to work on more international film projects together with these guys.
So how was your perspective when hearing about this, and what was the thing that made it so interesting for you? I think because some of you might have already been here for the morning session and knowing that Philip is a very prolific producer, working on an international level with co-production. So what was it made it so interesting for you to find that kind of collaboration?
Well, it's hello everyone. My name is Philip. So I'm a producer. So and together with a colleague, John Norata, we produce international, bigger, smaller scale feature films and TV series. And we did a movie together way before we knew each other, Guns Akimbo, with Danny Radcliffe, and it's a very VFX-heavy movie. And our experience in this was that as a producer, you used to get the script, the production, then there's VFX. You go to a vendor. The vendor is basically doing everything for you, and sometimes you know the numbers, sometimes you don't know the numbers. So our interest was to, at that time already, it was 8-9 years ago, to be in control, a bit more control, understand the numbers, understand the workflows already, and instead of going to a vendor, we hired our own VFX supervisor who worked for us and then did the whole film, and then we actually reached out and see what the movie really needed, and then it's much easier to actually engage and see what's the best solution. So that was the old VFX times, green screen and everything. So that was our very good learning experience, because the movie in the end, VFX budgets in the past always exploded normally, and that one didn't explode. So we thought, okay, we had another project on the plate which is called The Crow, which is the reimaging of The Crow. And the whole thing with the bird, that was to be created digitally, and digital assets, Fortnite skins, all this also was on the lineup. So we obviously heard about virtual production, and then we reached out to them, and not only to say, okay, we want to go and buy your service. They were predominantly doing commercials, so we want to know technology, and that's how we partnered up. And then, as Dennis said, they were getting kicked out of the fairgrounds, and we were looking. That was never my intent to buy a studio and to just rent it out. The idea was to create a tech hub, and that was 5 years ago. When we started, where we use technology at its best. There was no AI at the time, very little. So virtual production was like the thing, and throughout the years, we did a series of other full movies: Return to Silent Hill, Nine Perfect Strangers, a Hulu series with Nicole Kidman on the lot and on location, always in a sort of, I know when Colin Lonely said, don't mention the word hybrid, but hybrid in a way, it's always a mix, and together with Hyperbole, we always follow all the developments, because obviously we all know the technology is changing every day. But that was the idea, and it's the idea, and we've implemented that for 5 years, and in a way also for several reasons. First, because we know that the market already at that time was changing. Of course, there was a series boom at the time still, but the budgets were going up. The money in the market is not more, and the incentives are also capped. So we, as producers, we have to come up with solutions, to make things for less. And we already applied that in The Crow. Now I have already almost 5 years in experience in making a series of movies and things where we think, okay, that some technology solution works better, some doesn't. There's something new. So it's constant R&D, which allows us to remain also competitive and get films made. Cliffhanger was another big movie which we did, and that movie was let's say was around being financed for quite a while. And we see this a lot in the market now, that there's a lot of productions which, when we can talk about that later, it's like productions coming in and beyond our own productions who try to find a solution. They come to us and say, okay, they all have a delta from cost and financing, and that delta, obviously the usual thing was, we talked about this morning, going to Eastern Europe. Go to Eastern Europe, it's cheap there. It's the Americans, and that's how we get rid of the delta. Now, to get rid of the delta is more complex. It requires two skills. I mean, it's the financing skill still, maximizing the incentives, etc. But on the other hand, also come up with a technology solution and a production concept which actually makes the film actually financially close.
You mentioned a little bit that in terms of not only the budgets getting tighter, especially coming out of the series space or in the series industry, and it becomes harder to make reasonable, feasible financing for this. At the same time, audience get used to more and more production value, that they are used now to things to look a certain way, not at least through the high-end productions that some of the streamers put out there. So maybe what I take a little bit out of this is that, especially also from the production perspective, it becomes very important to have a certain kind of tech literacy of understanding what is possible at which costs to maximize production value and minimize the costs for it. So is it something that came as a learning for you, or is it something that comes more naturally out of the way that you've always worked or engaged in that regard?
Well, I would say tech literacy is extremely important because it gives you a rather better view of what is possible and what is not possible. And we might be leaning now very heavy into this whole AI topic because, and I'm going to jump a little bit on the topic right now, since we are in the film business, in the film niche, when we talk about AI, we all talk about Gen AI. Like, I prompt something or put some images in and then I get my final image. What we learned now over the past 3 years engaging these systems is that actual like LLM usage, AI usage, coding harnesses, like the other world of AI enables and helps us out a lot on like approaching these productions that come to us. So if I look back 3 years ago, we had scripts come in and go with these deltas mentioned, and back then the perspective was only virtual production, so they came in and said, hey, can you look at the script and tell me what you can do in your studio so I can maybe save some costs. And that used to be in a way that me or another person has to sit down for 2-3 days, digest the whole script, maybe multiple scripts, make breakdown sheets, write everything down, put our headspace into it, break these things down and like give solid numbers of what is possible or not. And like 20% of this work was nice creative work, where we actually put our human work into it, and 75% or 80% of that was me just typing stuff into a spreadsheet. And now with coding harnesses, we build our own tooling where we can put a script in that already puts all the information there, and then we can actually start creating solutions that work in there. And now as implementation costs also, as a virtual production studio and developers have been getting so cheap because just coding with AI is so efficient, we can now develop more novel solutions which have many different names currently. Some people call it blue screen shoots, gray box, gray stage, sparse set solutions, where we combine the world of virtual production, where it's like a real-time intent. I work together, people on set, everybody can see what they do, combined with a usual VFX world where I shoot something in a blue screen and then have to go through the whole post workflow where I see the finished product. And now with new development of tools, we can actually do a pretty high quality preview already while we're shooting in a gray or blue screen, like we saw in your presentation, and have basically the whole VFX cost, which used to be weeks of artists working, compressed into a very short time, even so far that a shoot can generate dailies with a pretty high-end look already that can go straight into the edit instead of waiting for the whole post workflow.
I think what comes out there, and this is something that we already noticed in some of the topics discussed at Plot Next a couple of weeks ago, that this also looks like that production flows and workflows are changing and are getting in a way that it's I think more important than ever to understand what that means if you really want to unlock the possibilities of that and unlock maybe or move also shift budget inside your production between VFX into other parts. That kind of understanding is needed. I think one of the points that at least it seems a little bit from the outside that especially in the last year and 1.5 years, a little bit the I would say reputation of virtual production has changed a lot because it has suddenly a much higher quality in that regard, not the least through employing their AI technology, very broadly AI technology. So how is it for you if you interact with DOPs, with directors, with creatives, maybe both of you, how in your experience has it changed as an argument for them to say this makes things possible that you couldn't do before and that allows the budget to go into things that are more important to you?
Well, definitely, I think there's been quite a shift in the vibe, I would say. I mean, to get back to your first point, what you said, tech literacy, I think there's two ways to it. You know, there's tech literacy for the creatives and the producers. That's a key. Everyone needs to. I think it's this. If you don't engage with this now, I think it'll be hard in the future. It doesn't apply only to our industry. It applies to every sort of job, I think. And it's and as Dennis said, it's incredible how our daily work has changed with our own. We have our own LLMs, which we train and also to do administrative things, funding, calculations, audit reports. I mean, it's incredible the efficiency gain we have on that end as well, So it's the tech literacy on the one end, but then it's also the creative literacy you have. The tech people need to have. It goes both ways. So and that's what and this key element is and if you as a producer, if you do your own production, or if you have a big talent coming to you looking for solutions, that the tech person, Dennis in particular, in our sense, you need to understand film. You need to understand what do the creatives want, what does the DOP want. So how is film being made? What stories to be told? This is something which AI won't also replace. It's all the set of tools which are super useful. And so it really goes both ways, It goes the tech people need to understand film, or film or TV or fictional narration, or in the documentary world. And the other thing is that the producers also need to understand the tech, not to the final bits, but what's possible, what's not possible. And that's changing also every day. And the vibe shift was, I think what we see is that even big well-known stars of talent, is actually, a year ago or 2 years ago, several people said, I won't touch AI at all, A very famous one then said that loudly and then sold a company for $600 million to Netflix. So the different story, but actually they come and with the budget being, the budgets being tighter, and it's not so easy to finance those films even on a very high level talent. So they look for solutions, and if the solution is not sometimes it's financially driven for the delta, or it's just a place where you actually can shoot. I mean that's obvious. But to bring them on board, show them the solution, and then we have a particular case. Can't say too much about that. It's a very difficult location. The director came to us for that, but actually going through and planning the production, with new workflows, more efficient, shorter shooting times, etc. It liberates also readers some money to actually go on location for 2 weeks. So and every film is different in that sense. And as Dennis said, I think you have to have the tools which allow you to to make those choices, and also be prepared when you go and speak to this talent. Okay, you know, this you could do this way, this you could that way. You can build this real, you can do this virtual, or even go to location. And that, I think, that's the asset which we try to, which we have built and which we try to build, is to have the knowledge and also the experience which we actually also feed into the technology to make those to make those predeterminations and see, you know, and enter in the dialogue with all the different heads of departments. So that's a big vibe change that also, you know, the big ones also, everyone's now considering this, which wasn't the case a year ago. The other vibe change, I think, it is that those who you know who say they're gonna have we're just selling pixels at the end, you know, and this is VFX companies who now say we create the whole movie for you. They come to realize that you do need a human, you need a creative, you need someone with a vision. So vibe shift on both ends, I would say. So it's good. So that's why I'm looking more positive in what's coming. But you have to everyone, you have to engage and have to depending on who you are, you know, what the technology offers. And also in the workflows. I mean, basically, just one side example, then stop. But it's like the art department. Yeah, it used to be like this in the normal process. You have the art director, then you look at props. The prop person does the list, you know, goes to the different shops, checks, you know, and then sends them per email to the producer, you know, and then the director makes the choice, then it feeds down, process back and forth. That can be now completely automatized, you know, and everyone has access to this, and it's the whole those also the little choices you make. The efficiency gain is tremendous.
I think what is a little bit mentioned in terms of this, it seems like that you say that for a long time you were already engaging with virtual production as part of how it can unlock potential for projects, a little bit like super powered or like rocket fuel now through AI. But it still sounds that there's a lot of expertise that you have to like gather inside an institution to make this feasible and to make it possible to gain that production value, so to further this a little bit. How is it for you as Hyperbole in that regard? How do you make sure that you're staying on top of the game? Because I think a lot of people who engage with AI are always like, so yeah, but it's so difficult, and I wait a couple of years until everything has settled. It seems like that, or at least what we hear, that a lot of people give as a feedback that you can only gain a certain kind of experience by working with it and engaging with it. What is your perspective on this?
Yeah, that's why I mentioned that we did a lot of commercials in the beginning, because compared to film, like, you know, a film comes in and you do a few in a year, and those are all like 2 weeks of intense work. When you do commercial work, you can build a team that does 3 commercials a week, yada, 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 and then you institutionalize this knowledge and these workflows, and also like ways of communicating with directors and DPs. Yeah.
But maybe as a question in that regard, how do you think that looking how you experienced the last couple of years, how it has accelerated and how it also changed your approach to technology, projecting this a little bit into the future? I know that's always a difficult question in that regard.
What we do is that we spend, if you ask a business person, we spend way too much time on R&D and a lot of spec work, actually. Productions come to us and they have certain questions. Can I do this with Gen AI? Can I do this with VFX? Can I do this with virtual production? And we're super lucky that we have a team that engages these questions quite a lot and put a lot of man hours into testing things, trying out things, failing a lot, but also finding solutions, what we can do. And that's where we're trying to remove us a little bit from the word virtual production, because we engage into all these different systems now for film productions, and these things you can only for sure recommend to somebody if you actually tried them and did them beforehand. But yeah, as an indie studio, that's not easy. Yeah.
I think it's I'm glad we have someone who stays on top of things because it's impossible for me to be that. But I think what I want to add also on this is what I said before. When you speak to the talent, the thing is it's honesty, about the possibilities. I think that's also something you can't only sell one technology. That's I think it's always different solutions, and sometimes the solution is maybe not a tech solution, but it's that process. I think that's how you gain confidence, and it allows you also for technology to be implemented, and the possibilities are insane. I mean, compliments to your production, and I think that's absolutely great what you did. And if you think about it, today, I mean, if you look into animation as well, I mean, you can do a mocap storyboard. Rehearse the whole film, and then AI actually does the whole animation. I think it's completely changing how things are being made. Yeah, so.
I think that's a great transition to our next guest here on the couch. A big round of applause for you too. Also later, if you're interested in a little bit of a deep dive, you're available for any follow-up questions, and I think it's the possibility for a one-on-one session even here. So.
Thank you so much.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The phone. You missed your MMA wrestling entrance music. I think after looking at it from a creative perspective, looking at it from a production and also in terms of virtual production point of view, I think the interesting last puzzle piece is a little bit in terms of how it affects a big production, like a big institution like UFA. I think when we first engaged with the topic a couple of years ago, one of the first things that the first things that we noticed is that at UFA and one of the biggest production companies in Germany and one of the subsections there at UFA Serial Drama, who do a lot of daily and weekly drama, that there the application of AI was super fast, or the adoption of trying to experiment with it in a lot of different ways. You have now a role at UFA that takes like a little bit of a bird's eye view of trying to understand how that technology might actually work in the day-to-day and what the adoption of it means from a lot of different perspectives. Maybe you can give us a little bit of a quick intro. What exactly does your job entail, and how does it look in a day-to-day?
Okay, my job title is AI advisor at UFA GmbH, which is the umbrella under all the other different sections hang out. My approach is to try to first find out what all the different productions already secretly or not so secretly trying out with AI, and to get this information and this knowledge and to spread this knowledge. This is one of my main topics. And then at the most important thing is to advise strategically what makes sense for our products to keep our legacy business in place and keep it feasible. We all know how the budget's getting smaller and smaller, but the most important thing is to try to find new businesses and try to enhance our products that we already have. And the new technologies gives us the chance to, with the same amount of money and the same amount of people, make much bigger productions, much higher production value, and to gather all these informations to try to find the solutions, try to think and see into the future. It's not only about what's going on like now, but in 1 year, in 5 years. I think the legacy business will totally change in 5 years. So how to fight is the wrong word, but how to approach this is a huge part of my daily business.
You already mentioned a little bit the big binding topic, bringing all those different perspectives together in enhancing production value, because this is also in at Plotnext a couple of weeks ago. This was what was brought in a lot of times, how the use of hybrid production, like integrating certain tools into your production, into the production planning, connecting with VFX or not, is unlocking a lot of possibilities that weren't there before. How do you right now see this in being applied in different projects, series, films at UFA, and what is the experience that you've gathered there in the last couple of years?
So it's changing this year. So the last years it was more about experimenting. Okay, what can we try out different things, workflows. But this year it's more and more is getting into production. Each new production we are starting is like the first thing is, okay, how can we enhance this with the new technologies? Is there a possibility, because all the Netflix and the streamers and the broadcasters, they want more production value, bigger than live shows, and to pitch a new project, you have to be always the one who's bringing the most out of the money, and also a good story. But today every ZDF show has to look like a Netflix show. That's what everybody is used. So, and Netflix produces for the whole world. ZDF produces just for Germany. If it's a good show, perhaps even further than that. So you have to be very creative to bring this to life, like in this very and we don't get more money for it. We get less money most of the time. So this year we all the new shows, they come to me or our team and ask me as advisor, okay, what part of the things can we do? And which is very interesting is that a lot of the creative people, the producers, the UPs, the directors, they're very into it. I'm a director myself, so I was always a tech nerd, but seeing that a lot of people are adapting it, and especially, like not especially, but not only the young people, but really big names in the business, like Frank Griebe, who was the DOP on Das Parfum, and they come to me and say, yeah, we have to adapt to this new possibilities, because they won't go away, and we will, and only if you try out and see and explore what's going on, that's how we can stay on top of the business.
Is there any examples in terms of how it's used right now, or for what some of the, I would say, generative AI, the mixture of Gen AI and VFX, where is it unlocking something that wasn't possible before? Is it only establishing shots, or does it also go into more complex things already?
Yes. We are doing different stuff. Like establishing shot is the lowest hanging fruit. Also legal-wise, because most of the times you don't see any persons in there. But now we are planning a show which is not shot in Scotland, but should be in Scotland. So we're doing a lot of set extension, which was formerly really VFX heavy. We're planning to do this with AI. Then in our daily dramas, which are under pressure as well, to be really visually interesting as something like this. Like normally you cannot do explosions or big stunts, or only once 2 years or something like this. We just did some stunts which were kind of full AI in the middle and some explosions. We are constantly not only getting bigger but also a little bit cheaper. We are working on digital extras, like so shooting with less extras, so getting faster and more efficient, and this what we are exploring. We are like the speaker before me said, like which is very important for us as well. It's not only Gen AI. It's like to have the possibility to write our own workflows, programs, code. It gives us the possibility to explore things like helping the editor. We are working on our own proprietary rough cut tool, which gives the editor of a scripted show the possibility to start at the point where everything is already like in place, and as a rough cut, like a very good assistant editor would place all the things, and okay, if person A says something, we cut to this and then back to that. So, but only as a first step. So we are hoping to reduce half a day of editing there. So then we can make the whole thing a little bit better, even better as something. So these are different things we're working at the moment in a lot of fields, but always exploring where makes it sense to put in effort, and because everything is changing so fast. So yes, these are some examples we are already doing.
One of the things that I found interesting when we had Max Borgman as a speaker, who comes from the complete VFX side. He works for 255 Pigs in Finland, who said something super interesting in his keynote, where he mentioned that for them, coming from Finland, where you also have small budgets, you really have to fight for everything that is visually a little bit more exciting, that he says that for them, the application of a lot of the mixture of virtual production and AI allowed them to unlock genres and to unlock stories that they couldn't have done before. Is this something that you notice in a similar way on your side?
Absolutely. We can think now about genres we couldn't think of in Germany. We have a IP, which is a really nice series of books, where it was not possible to produce it in our landscape, kind of, and now with the help of AI, we are rethinking it and possibly doing the show now, because it's possible. So, and it's a fantasy genre, which is not a very niche genre, but it's a very expensive genre. So now this might happen. And that's great for us and for our business.
Something that you mentioned a little bit before, on that was also touched upon earlier by Philip and Dennis, is saying that having obviously the technological expertise, it's with you and a lot of the people in your team. But still, there seems like a gap with the creatives and with other parts maybe of a big company like UFA to be able to understand where can I use this to get more out of my budget and create something that's visually more exciting or that does things before. So how does this, you mentioned it before, how does this dissemination of knowledge, is this the big challenge right now for you?
Yeah, actually, I'm quite happy that there's a lot of thirst for it in our company. So my team's channel is always ringing or something like this. So with the help of our communication department and our town halls, it's clear that we have me and other people like me to help the people to gain more out of their budget, and to help them to understand what's possible, what's not possible. We're trying. So this AI education is a big part of our strategy, and we just rolled out our own chatbot with. It says, yeah, chatbot is not much, but we try to incorporate things in the chatbot, which is no other chatbot, and we try to make it a little bit more human is the wrong word, but a little bit more warm and a little bit more, okay, this is our thing, and there was always the question, yeah, what data can I put in there? Is my screen play? Is it? I see it next year in another film because AI is training on it, and that's. The good thing is it's okay. This is our chatbot, and you can put in whatever you want because this is safe. And this alone, like, we hope that it's bringing more people to try and to understand AI. And it's the same. You have to start with something, with an LLM, with a chatbot, and then you learn more, something like this, to see and to make so that the people understand more what it can do, what it cannot do, and how it helps you in the ways that are the work that you don't want to do, just putting some numbers in from one thing to another a program or something like this.
Taking a little bit of the drudgery away of some of the points. Part of your job is, as I know, definitely staying atop of technological developments, like having the finger on the pulse of what's happening in that regard. And as we heard a lot of times before, it's like a very quick and accelerating field in that regard. Maybe like as a parting question, where do you think will the next 12 months take us? At least maybe pick out one small field in terms of video generation and fidelity.
I think the models will be more intelligent and will generate longer stretches, so it makes it easier for people to generate their stories in a interesting way, but you still have to have a vision. And I think we will see the first full AI movies, starting with animations, but soon after that, I think some real things. And some of this will touch people if they're done by real filmmakers with real good storytellers. I think this will be the thing. And I think some of the industry, like the commercial industry, will struggle hard to find their jobs. But I think that good storytelling, I think there will be, because there's so much production value is not a thing anymore, like nothing which is a gatekeeper production value. So the story, telling the story in a way that it gets the people, it will be more important than ever, because there will be so much things out there and to watch. So you have to stand out somehow.
So in that regard, no danger for creatives and more like another tool in the toolbox.
for us creatives, this will be great. Let's see a lot of people which are working on set. I think there will be less set work, unfortunately. I love to be on the set. I would love to shoot only on set and no tech at all, but that will be not the case, unfortunately.
Thank you so much for that perspective. And I think for the breakout session, like I said, I think it's going to be one-on-one sessions if you're interested in. But I think in terms of a little bit of what's the current state of the technology, and give a little bit of insight in what you're doing.
I can show you some things which I can show on the big screen. Yeah.
So I think the meetup point is 2 stories up at the meeting point, but we can also take each of you by the hand and take you upstairs. So see you up there, and thank you very much for your perspective.
Welcome.